If you have a pension, stop. I mean that literally. Stop and think about who is giving you advice on when to take Social Security, because most of what you are hearing was designed for people who do not have what you have. Right now, roughly only 20% of workers still have a traditional pension. That means 4 out of every 5 voices in this space and 4 out of every 5 articles, videos, and well-meaning conversations at the dinner table are calibrated for a different situation, not yours. And the problem is not that the advice is wrong. The problem is that it is being applied to the wrong person. Here is what I mean. The standard line is delay Social Security as long as possible. Maximize your monthly check. That logic holds when Social Security is your primary income floor. But when you have a pension already doing that job, layering on a maximum Social Security payment at 70 creates an income stack the IRS is very happy to tax. On the other side, you have people who say take it at 62, invest the difference. Their math is not crazy either. When you are single, when your health is not great, or when every dollar matters today. But when there is a spouse in the picture, that decision is not just about you. If you could tell me the exact day you are going to leave this world, I could tell you the single best moment to file for Social Security in about 5 seconds. But I cannot. Neither can you. What we can do is make sure you do not leave a mess for the person who stays behind. That is what this is actually about. You spent decades earning that pension. The system has traps sitting at the front door of retirement. Some of them are built into the tax code. Some of them are built into the way benefits are structured. And they are perfectly designed to catch people who followed advice that was never meant for them. I am Wes. Wes Investor exists to protect what you have built. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the strategies we cover here. Let us get into it. Let me tell you about a pattern I have watched play out more times than I can count. Someone gets laid off at 57. Company downsizing. Not their choice. They spend a couple of years trying to find something comparable. Nothing quite fits. So they land a part-time job just to stay busy and cover the gap. Then 62 hits and they think, why not? The pension is already coming in. Social Security is right there. Let me turn it on. So they do. And then they go back to work part-time, maybe 25 or 30 hours a week. Because they want the structure, they want the extra income, they are not ready to sit still. This is where the earnings test kicks in, and it is not gentle. In 2026, if you are collecting Social Security before your full retirement age, and you are still earning income from work, there is a threshold. That threshold this year is $24,480. For every $2 you earn above that line, Social Security withholds $1. So if you are making $40,000 part-time, you are looking at roughly $7,760 in withheld benefits for the year. Now, technically, that money is not gone forever. Once you reach your full retirement age, the SSA recalculates your benefit upward to account for the months that were withheld. But the recalculation is partial, and the timing is unpredictable. And in the meantime, you have been living as if that income was there when it was not. That is the trap. You turned on a faucet that only half works. And here is where things get interesting, because there is a major legal shift you need to understand before you make any decision right now. For years, people with pensions were getting hit twice. Their Social Security benefit was reduced by a provision called WEP, the windfall elimination provision, because they had pension income from a job that did not pay into Social Security. And if they were receiving a government pension, GPO, the government pension offset could reduce or even eliminate spousal and survivor benefits entirely. Those provisions are gone now. The Social Security Fairness Act was signed in 2025, effective retroactively from January 2024. WEP and GPO have been repealed. Your pension will no longer reduce your Social Security payment. For a lot of people in this room, that is a meaningful increase in lifetime income, and some are already seeing back payments coming through. But here is what that change also means. Your Social Security benefit just got larger, which means the consequences of a bad timing decision just got larger too. A bigger check sounds like a win, and it is if you use it right. If you do not, you have more income sitting in the wrong tax bucket at the wrong time for the wrong reason. Getting a bigger benefit is a gift. Turning that gift into a tax problem is avoidable. So people hear about WEP and GPO going away, they see their new projected benefit, and one of two things happens. Either they rush to claim early because the number looks good enough right now, or they decide to hold out until 70 to max out every dollar. Both of those instincts feel logical. Both of them can cause serious damage depending on your situation. I read the comments on these videos. I read them carefully, and there is a split that shows up constantly. On one side, you have people who took Social Security at 62, and they are proud of it. They will tell you they beat the system, got their money early, threw it into the market, and they are ahead. On the other side, you have people who are holding out until 70, convinced that the biggest possible check is the smartest possible move. Both groups are confident, and depending on your situation, both groups could be leaving serious damage behind. Start with the early crowd. The logic sounds reasonable on the surface. Your pension covers the mortgage, the utilities, the basics. Social Security at 62 is not survival money, it is extra. So why not take it now, invest it, let compound interest do its job over 8 years instead of waiting? If you earn 6% annually, you could come out ahead of someone who waited. The math is not wrong. The problem is what the math is not counting. When one spouse dies, the household goes from 2 Social Security checks to 1. The survivor keeps the larger of the two. That is how the survivor benefit works. Which means if you locked in a permanently reduced benefit at 62 and you go first, the person left behind is living on whatever floor you set for the rest of their life. I have been close to enough of these situations to tell you this plainly. The look on a surviving spouse's face when they realize the monthly income just dropped by a third and that it is never going back up is not something you forget. They did not make that decision, but they are carrying it. That is not a tax problem. That is a lifetime income problem, and it cannot be undone. Now look at the other extreme. Delaying to 70 is the right move for a lot of people. But for pension holders, it comes with a consequence that does not get talked about enough. When you have a pension that is already generating taxable income, and then you layer on a maximum Social Security check at 70, and then required minimum distributions start hitting from your retirement accounts, your combined income can cross thresholds that trigger serious damage. Up to 85% of your Social Security benefit becomes taxable at the federal level once your combined income gets high enough. That is not a fringe scenario for pension holders. That is a very common one. And then there is IRMAA. IRMAA is the Medicare premium surcharge that kicks in when your income exceeds certain thresholds. In 2026, for married couples filing jointly, that starts at $218,000. If your pension plus a maximum Social Security benefit plus RMDs pushes you past that line, you are paying significantly more for Medicare Part B and Part D every month. And IRMAA is calculated on income from 2 years prior, so by the time you see it on your bill, the window to avoid it has already closed. I have watched people do everything right on paper, delay, save, invest consistently for 30 years, and then spend their first years of retirement writing checks to the IRS that they never saw coming. Not because they were careless, because the advice they followed was built for a different income structure. Here is the reframe. The goal is not to maximize your Social Security check. That is the wrong target. The goal is to maximize your after-tax income across your entire retirement. Those are two different things, and for pension holders, they often point in two different directions. A big Social Security check is a means. It is not the end. The widow's penalty closes one door permanently. The tax bomb quietly drains what you thought was yours from the other side. And sitting between those two extremes is where your actual decision lies. Picture this. A couple, both retired. They have a pension coming in, 2 Social Security checks, maybe some investment income on the side. Life is comfortable. They built it that way deliberately. Decades of discipline. And it worked. Then one morning, everything changes. A health event. Sudden or not so sudden. And the person with the higher income is gone. What happens to the household finances in the months that follow is something most couples never model out in advance. And that gap between what they assumed would happen and what actually happens is where the widow's penalty lies. When 2 Social Security checks become 1, the survivor keeps the larger of the 2. That part people usually know. What they do not fully absorb until they are living it is what happens to everything else at the same time. The pension may have a survivor benefit built in. Some do at 50% or 100% of the original amount. Some do not, or the election was waived years ago for a higher monthly payout. Either way, total household income drops, sometimes by 1/3, sometimes by more, and the tax code does not soften that landing. When you are married and filing jointly, you share a set of tax brackets. A couple with $90,000 in combined retirement income pays taxes as a couple. The moment one spouse passes, the survivor files as single. Same $90,000 in income, now taxed in a compressed bracket structure. The standard deduction drops. The thresholds for Social Security taxability tighten. The IRMAA brackets narrow. The IRS does not offer a grief adjustment. The bill goes up the same year, the income goes down. I used to believe that leaving tax-deferred accounts intact for a surviving spouse was the cautious, responsible choice. Let the money keep growing, pass it along, let them decide what to do with it. I was wrong about that. What I was actually doing was handing someone a set of future R&Ds they would have to take at single tax rates in years when they could least afford a larger tax burden. That is not protection. That is a transfer of a problem. The fragility path looks like this. No advance planning. 2 income streams become 1. Tax bracket jumps. Medicare surcharges hit. The surviving spouse is making reactive decisions under stress, often alone, often for the first time. The resilience path looks different. It requires decisions made years before the loss, when both spouses are at the table, when the options are still open. Not because you are being morbid, because you are being honest about how the system is structured and who it rewards. The widow's penalty is not a fringe risk. For a couple where one spouse has a meaningful pension and both have Social Security, this is the central planning scenario, not the edge case. And if the tax side of losing a spouse is not enough on its own, consider this. The surviving spouse is now managing everything solo. Investment decisions, tax filings, benefit coordination. The financial load does not get lighter. It gets heavier at exactly the moment when it should not have to. That is the stress test. Not a market crash. Not inflation. The quiet restructuring of your entire financial picture on the day you can least handle it. So if claiming early destroys your spouse's survivor income and waiting until 70 triggers a tax bomb, what is the actual move? This is where having a pension stops being a complication and starts being an advantage. A real one. Most people retire and immediately feel pressure to turn everything on at once. Pension, Social Security, start drawing from the 401k. Get the income flowing. That instinct makes sense when you have no guaranteed income base. But you do. That changes the sequence entirely. Step 1 is straightforward. Live on the pension first. If your pension covers your core expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, you do not need to flip the Social Security switch on day 1 of retirement. That delay is not a sacrifice. It is a deliberate use of the one asset most retirees do not have, a guaranteed monthly floor that does not require you to touch anything else. Every month you delay Social Security past 62, your eventual benefit grows. Past your full retirement age, It grows by 8% per year up to age 70. That is a guaranteed return on patience that no market can replicate with certainty. Step 2 is where pension holders have a window that almost nobody talks about. Between the day you retire and the day you turn on Social Security, your taxable income is at its lowest point in decades. The pension is coming in, but Social Security is not yet. RMDs have not started. This is your tax window, and it is open for a limited time. This is the moment to do Roth conversions. You take money from your traditional IRA or 401k, pay the tax now at your current lower rate, and move it into a Roth account where it grows tax-free and is never subject to RMDs. Yes, paying 22% or 24% today feels uncomfortable. But you are paying it at the lowest rate you will likely see for the rest of your retirement. Once Social Security starts, once RMDs kick in, that rate goes up. The window closes. Every dollar you convert during this period is a dollar that cannot be used against you later. It does not count toward the 85% Social Security taxability threshold. It does not push you past the IRMAA line. And if your spouse survives you, it passes to them as a tax-free asset they can draw from under single filing status without a penalty. That is not a small thing. That is the entire game for a lot of couples in this situation. Step 3 is about your spouse, specifically their benefit timing. If your spouse did not work or earn significantly less than you, their Social Security spousal benefit can be up to 50% of your benefit. But that 50% cap is reached at their full retirement age, which is 67 for most people in this group. It does not increase if they wait past 67. So unlike your benefit, which grows every year you delay towards 70, their spousal benefit hits its ceiling at FRA and stops there. That means you need to coordinate the timing of two separate benefit streams, not just optimize yours in isolation. When you file, when they file, and in what order, all of it affects the total household income for the rest of both your lives. This is not set it and forget it. It is a sequencing decision that deserves a real conversation, ideally before you retire, not the morning you are filling out the paperwork. Do not let the IRS define what your retirement looks like. You built this. The framework exists to protect it. If the pension bridge strategy made sense to you today, share this video with someone you know who is heading into retirement with a pension. They need a map before they walk into this. Here is what I want you to take away from this. You are not in the same position as most people approaching retirement. You have a pension. That is not a minor detail. It is a structural advantage that changes every calculation on the board, including this one. The mistake is treating Social Security as a standalone decision. When does my check start? How big is it? Am I leaving money on the table? Those are the wrong questions. The right question is, how does this one decision interact with my pension, my taxes, my spouse's income, and the years we still have in front of us? When you look at it that way, the path gets clearer. Your pension is the floor. Social Security is the amplifier. Your tax window is the tool. And the time between now and when you file is not dead time. It is the most valuable planning window you will have. The people who come out of retirement in the best shape are rarely the ones who maximized any single number. They are the ones who thought about the whole picture, made decisions in the right sequence, and protected the person sitting across the table from them. Your investment assets, the accounts you spent decades building, they do not have to carry survival weight anymore. The pension handles that, which means those assets can do something different now. They can fund the trips you kept putting off. They can cover healthcare costs without panic. They can become a legacy instead of a lifeline. That is a different kind of retirement than most people get to have. You earned it. Social Security timing is not the finish line. It is one decision inside a larger picture that includes taxes, survivor protection, healthcare costs, and what you want the next 20 or 30 years to actually look like. Make it with the full picture in front of you. You have worked hard. You have lived with discipline. And the reward for that is not just a bigger check. It is options, real ones. Thank you for watching WES Investor. If this gave you a clearer way to think about your own situation, subscribe so you do not miss what we cover next. See you soon.